about a holistic approach. What does that look like from how you teach, how you work, how you support people? You said, kind of the psychosomatic, the mental, emotional, and then the physical and the spiritual. What do each of those phases look like for you in being able to help people?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I just want to tag along something to what you've just said, which, is that I have found that my primary role is to almost give permission, the permission that people perceive they need because of the ways in which we've been infantilized and brainwashed around our own limited capacity to assert agency in our own lives. We think we need permission to step into that power, right? And so because of my credentials, because I come from the priesthood, I'm in a position to confer that permission. But that's really pretty much all I've ever done, because when I describe what I'm about to describe, you'll see it's not rocket science, right? It's not very complex. And I've actually found I stopped practicing last year one-on-one and I had a wait list and a very successful practice for many, many years. Because I think we are at a point in our collective evolution where this one-on-one construct, this dyad, where somebody knows more, better, and is instructing from a place of hierarchical power the other. Even though my entire approach is, you already know, I'm just here to remind you, it still invokes that parent-child stuff. And it's not the most efficient, it's not the most cost-effective way to heal. And, I've actually derived great inspiration from you guys and Ming Tong because of the group-based model and how much I have seen that this is what allows us to feel supported while we take command and lay claim to our very unique process, right? Because you're not meant to do this alone, right? So if you're not meant to do it one-on-one with a clinician, then does that mean you're just supposed to walk off into the wilderness and heal yourself? We all deserve to be supported. But what that support looks like going forward, I think is really going to be a much more distributed model. So, my sort of bias is that it's much more your psyche, and these deeper emotions that we have been protecting ourselves from and running from, and the work that you may have come here to do for your family lineage. All of that is so much more accessible when you have a comfortable body that you're inhabiting and you feel clear and you can experience your body as an intuitive gauge, right? What I mean by that is that you start to get a sensation in different parts of your body. You start to have a knowing within that tells you yes and it tells you no. It's very binary, right? And it's very clear. And that is really not available to you when you have brain fog and bloating and joint pain and your hair is falling out and you haven't slept in a month, right? So how can we, like I said, triage and kind of pick the low-hanging fruit? Because if you're having anything from panic attacks to, perceptual disturbances and hallucinations, it could be that you just have gluten intolerance or a significant B12 deficiency. Maybe you don't need to go on some like shamanic path to figuring out your, clairvoyant gifts that are emerging. It may not be that complex. So why don't we just chop wood, carry water first, right? So my recommendations are typically to start with a clean diet, right? Not only because bringing consciousness to our own nourishment is a healing of the mother wound, right? It's beginning to, as adults, understand that we can nourish ourselves and we should, and here's what it can look like. It's a sacred experience that we have been brainwashed into understanding as, like something like putting fuel into a car or just consuming calories or as a source of some sort of emotional, reward system. and which is inevitable that we would relate addictively to food because there's so many wounds that are unhealed. And, my friend Charles Eisenstein talks about this, like, it's like as if, you're so thirsty for water, right? And instead you lick an ice cream cone. Well, it's going to feel good for a minute, but then you're going to want another lick and another lick and another lick. And the truth is you just need water, right? So our very basic existential needs are not met, and particularly the needs for communion and togetherness and interdependency. When we live in these modular homes, we eat fake food, we have totally aberrant exposures to the natural world environment, sunlight, movement, and we are swimming in a toxic, literal soup from, electromagnetic radiation, all the way to fluoride in our water. Our souls should be screaming, right? Rattling the cage. And if you struggle with, energy imbalance, if you struggle with cognitive issues, if you struggle with mood and anxiety, or worse, we are telling you something's wrong with you. Instead of observing, maybe you are a sentinel, maybe you are a canary in the coal mine. And maybe, folks like Krishnamurti were right when he said that it's no sign of health to be well adapted to a profoundly sick society. So your symptoms have meaning. And the meaning, the message is for you to decipher, only you. And no doctor or healer can really do that, because until you acquire that insight, develop that insight, it's someone else's truth, right? And so that's where, I can tell you have a B12 deficiency because I looked at your labs, but until you change your diet and begin to eat in a more peaceful way that allows you to digest more thoroughly, and you feel the difference, it's just a construct. It's an intellectual construct. So that's why my approach is pretty generalized. Even though we want to know what's wrong with us, the truth is it doesn't really matter so much if you can get to a place where you feel in command of your daily choices. And I think that ignites something on a neurological front that sends this signal that regeneration is now available, right? All of these kind of changes and the vectorization of your attention towards yourself, it's a signal, this meta level signal of safety. So I typically recommend a diet that is a typical ancestral diet, right? And it was one of 12 different diets that my mentor, Nick Gonzalez, taught about. It happens to be an animal food containing diet. And my perspective on that has evolved over time to where, as I was taught by him, there is a diet that helps those who struggle with depression, with hypothyroidism, with overweight, with asthma, with allergies, with multiple chemical sensitivities. There's a particular diet that these folks need to eat based on their autonomic nervous system dominance, as parasympathetic dominance. And it involves red meat multiple times a day. And then my adaptation to it is essentially grain-free, and sugar, alcohol, coffee-free. So it's just filtered water. It's tons of vegetables. And it also restricts for what are called resistant starches so that the microbiome can reset in the gut. So that includes things like white potatoes. We're cutting out dairy. It's a big shift for people who have gotten into convenience food eating, but it's not a huge shift if you are, somebody who likes a simple kind of a meal, so it would be something like steak and broccoli or spinach, with a little bit of sweet potato, that kind of a thing. So the kinds of meals you cook yourself are very, very basic, very simple, no fancy recipes. But a lot of the folks who have come to my work have identified as vegan, sometimes vegetarian. And it was always very challenging for me to know how to navigate that, because I'm not in a position, nor would I ever, want to put myself in a position to suggest what is ethically appropriate for anyone to do or what's consistent with anyone's value system. But I did see that for myself and over again with patients, and then in my online program, that there was something to this. Now I've come to wonder if there is a phase in the recovery process, when you are so toxic, your body burden is so high, and you have so much unexamined trauma that is literally saturating your tissues, right? And your neurochemistry is such that you are in active fight or flight, sometimes for years on end. If maybe we borrow, the pranic energy of animals for a period of time, because a lot of folks who've gone through my program, myself included, it evolves, right? And it feels less interesting, less appealing over time. And that's where, if you follow someone else's lifetime prescription, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble, because only you know. So how do you refine your inner impulse? How do you get in contact with how to read yourself and your preferences?
We hope you enjoyed this short excerpt from the Health and Healing Club. This entire video, including an in-depth discussion and thoughtful and inspiring questions and answers, is available inside the Health and Healing Club, along with hundreds of hours of premium and exclusive life-changing content, practices, and holistic, natural, and integrative solutions for health and healing. You can start your free trial today at healthandhealingclub.com.